The Stump was discovered while hiking along the recently flooded banks of the Schroon River in upstate New York's Adirondack Mountains. It was apparent that it was very old and completely hollow on the inside. The end was clean cut, as if a chainsaw had downed it. The tree itself had grown from the root at a severe angle, leading me to believe that it had spent its green years growing directly out of the riverbank, almost horizontally over the water. I imagined it was blocking the river and cut many miles upstream above the 9-mile-long Schroon Lake to allow for the passage of canoes or kayaks. I guessed from its shape, size, location, that it was most likely a white cedar. The stump itself must have spent many years rotting in the riverbank before this year's flooding finally eroded it out of the earth and sent it floating downstream. The stump came back to camp with us and was added to the ever-growing driftwood pile, waiting and weathering until I could decide what would become of it. A few years later, I had just retired, and we were spending more time at garage sales in our home state of New Jersey. Tina dug it out of a pile of Jersey Shore yard sale junk. She presented it to me with a gleam in her eye, certain that with all the time I had on my hands, I could make something out of it. I was pretty sure it was just a piece of pine and would wind up in the fire pit. When the blades of my electric hand planer cut into the stump for the first time, I was quite surprised to see that it was a walnut slab and definitely not pine. My enthusiasm for this project just spun into high gear. At some point, you have to stop thinking and start cutting. The scent of cedar filled my shop. Unfortunately, when cutting the stump, it broke into 3 pieces, and these sections would now have to be epoxied back together if the project were to move forward. With the repair of the stump complete, I turned my efforts to inlaying a few decorative butterfly joints into the splitting areas of the top. Butterfly joints first came to my attention when I was still a very young woodworker, a preteen in the 1970s. I discovered them in a library book of furniture makers. George Nakashima was a master of woodwork using old traditional Japanese hand tools. His methods and tools are mysterious skills that I will never master. I was already headed down the traditional American path of Sears Craftsman power tools and jigs. It was many years later before I would attempt making a butterfly knife. These days I'm pretty good at it, or so I thought. For the first large, colorful butterfly, I decided to go freehand using a router but no template. Big mistake. While I do not believe in the pursuit of perfection, this was just plain bad workmanship, even for my mediocre standards. It had to be routed out and replaced, using the template with an even larger butterfly to cover up my mistake. To make my work unique, I prefer to use butterflies made from dyed, laminated layers of wood veneer. Sanding exposes the different colored layers of veneer in unpredictable ways, making each butterfly a unique individual. As a final touch, I used a Lazy Susan type hardware bracket to mount the top to the stump. There's a lockout underneath if you prefer not to have a spinning stump coffee table.